And I know Joe Khalil, who's on Capitol Hill for us, is getting more information on these documents being handed over to Congress. So let's bring Joe in on this, and then we'll go back to some of the other stories. So what are you hearing, Joe?
Well, we know that this report and the executive summary was handed over to just a few offices here in Congress. Not everybody, but the committees of jurisdiction, as they call them. So think the Judiciary Committee in the House and Senate, the Republican side and the Democratic side. They were given handed today hard copies of this. And so we know and can confirm that that has already happened. I want to go back and just dig a little bit deeper because, Connell, I'm reading this as we've just gotten at this executive summary. As you already laid out, the big takeaway is that they did find that Vice President Biden at the time mishandled classified material while he was, there, but that they didn't find enough to charge him criminally with anything. It's interesting because it does actually specify what documents they're talking about, and they say that among these documents were entries about national security and foreign policy as it relates to Afghanistan. It also talks about recovering documents that were actually handwritten notes from Vice President Biden's own notebooks. Now, we've talked about what gets classified and what doesn't. Oftentimes, if a president is making notes or a vice president is making personal notes, it may be something they just grab and put in their pocket. Technically, those notes could very well be deemed to be classified as soon as they are made. It seems like in that instance, that is what we have based on this executive summary that we're reading here. So again, these go back a number of years. You already discussed, how the investigation was handled and the differences between how former President Trump handled the investigation versus now President Biden. But that is sort of what we're learning right away, that, the nature of what was in those documents. And again, the bottom line, that it does not appear there are going to be any criminal charges as a result of this. Now, one quick note, the White House sent a memo this morning saying that essentially they were given the opportunity to make privileged the material. They got a chance to go through the report. They chose not to do so in the sake of transparency for the White House. Connell, I'm sure, because it's just coming in now, as we get reaction from members of Congress here, depending on what side of the aisle you talk to, you're going to get some different responses.
Yeah, I was looking at one of the comments there. To go back to what you were saying, where you wouldn't necessarily know whether a certain document was classified or not, or how it had been classified. Is that the Biden argument? And again, I know there's no criminal charges here, but the argument that the president and his team were making is that he thought that it was his property and it was not classified, or is he acknowledging, do you know, that he knew that he had classified documents in some parts of his, his home and other areas?
I'm not certain that they are making that argument, at least not yet. If so, I haven't heard that. But I can tell you that's been what I've heard from a number of people who have actually defended not just President Biden, but people have also defended former President Trump for certain classified documents, because there is a sense, if you talk to some senators here who deal with classified material all the time, there is a sense that the intelligence community, for example, tends to over-classify certain things. That is an opinion. That's not a fact, but I've heard that from multiple people here. And again, in some cases, we know that if a president or vice president or somebody who is in a very high position makes handwritten notes, that often then becomes classified. And there may be debate as to whether or not everything that is written down in those cases needs to be classified. So that's an argument that I've heard, again, an opinion that people have used to, again, defend Donald Trump and President Biden in these cases. So we don't know what was being written, but we know that at least specifics in the nature of this foreign policy as it relates to Afghanistan certainly was one while the Obama-Biden administration was in office.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.